What's going on? All you video gamers, it's all going down. Call of Duty live action movie is coming. It is completely coming. Why? Why not? This is Call of Duty. The whole Call of Duty series is going down. Quentin Tarantino, his team, they own the company which owns the rights for Call of Duty. Well, Call of Duty will be the first one. I don't know about Halo, but Call of Duty is coming before Halo. One, because it's already owned. It's already owned. It's already owned because they already have a film company that owns it. So they own the rights. And they're planning on bringing Modern Warfare, Black Ops. You're going to see all of them in like 3 different films coming out. They're going to bring the whole series of Call of Duty live action back to the movie theater. To the movie theater. And what made Call of Duty so intense is that it took place in different areas, different landscapes of the world and off the world, even in space, on other planets. The combat structure. This is a game that soldiers played, and well, that's because you guys play with a lot of people online. So you're going to run into a lot of glitches. What was your favorite Call of Duty game? Since we are live, what was your favorite Call of Duty? What is everybody's favorite Call of Duty game? I've never heard anybody mention World at War. Oh, they plan on bringing them all to the movies. If the first one hits, then it's a whole reign of Call of Duty movies coming out. But they were saying they were doing Modern Warfare, Black Ops is definitely going to be made into a movie. So they were definitely talking about them being done as series. So you might be talking more than 3 films. We could be looking at another Resident Evil type 7 movies in. So I can't remember what was the first Call of Duty. Wasn't it just Call of Duty? So yeah, that's the first movie. Then after that, they're gonna go, I believe, to Modern Warfare. Then I believe it's Black Ops. That was, I mean, that's what I was about to say. Wasn't that Modern Warfare? Don't come in here with numbers. World at War. You might see World at War too. I mean, they just didn't mention it, but I'm quite sure it is there. They just said Modern Warfare, Black Ops, but they said series. So I'm intrigued. I'm definitely one to see, because if you got Quentin Tarantino's team in there, it's gonna be really bloody. It's gonna be really violent. It's gonna be really bloody. I mean, this is the crew that did the Hateful Eight, who did the screenplay for the Hateful Eight. Yeah, they own the rights to Call of Duty. How many of y'all know what game this is? Tekken. Oh man. I remember me and my buddy, man, we used to sit there, drink a whole 30 pack of Ice House, and order pizza and play Tekken. On Tekken they had the tournament style. And you pick like 10 fighters and the other person pick 10, and y'all just keep playing. And they used to be so good that they used to be tearing me up. I just wanted to stab somebody with Yoshimitsu. That's all I wanted to do was get that stab off. I knew if I did a leg sweep and knocked you off, I had enough time to come with that stab. That's gonna take like all your energy away. I was the king of stab. KO! The king of stab, baby. Yoshimitsu. Well, Killer Instinct was gonna be made into a movie. They just didn't have the budget. Ever since Mortal Kombat came out, they were gonna try to make the film. It never came out the way they wanted to. Oh yeah, there's a script for it and everything. There's an entire script for the entire movie and it never came out. I can't believe y'all don't know which game this is. I thought y'all were gamers. Aren't y'all supposed to be gamers and y'all don't know what video game this is? Y'all know this is Call of Duty. And I cannot believe y'all don't know which Call of Duty this is. It's at the Black Ops 2. I just gave up. Shame on you. Oh yeah, the Sega Dreamcast. That's because Sega had the rights to Street Fighter, and it had the right to Marvel, and it was the only one. Sega's only problem is they tried to rival Nintendo. See, a lot of you guys don't know how the war started. Sega made games. That's what they did, the whole company. And they wanted a partnership with Nintendo. So Nintendo was like, you keep making games and doing what you do, and we're going to go in the route that we're doing. Keep making the games. And Sega was like, no. We're going to come out with our own system. Since you don't want to give us what we want, we're going to just make games exclusively for our own system. Then they came out with Sega Genesis, and they wanted to rival Nintendo, who took their guys and was making their own exclusive content. Now, and then it became a war with Sega. Sega was keeping their content and their games exclusively for Sega, and only their own system. And their system was better than Nintendo's system. The Sega Genesis was way light years better than the Nintendo system. But you know what Nintendo had? Games. They had games. And when I mean they had games, they had games. They had too many games. And they had games that had story. They had too much stuff for Sega to be able to last. And what happened to Sega was their first system the Sega Genesis was so well made with blast processing. Blast processing made the gameplay a lot faster. Nintendo gameplay was slow. But like Sonic the Hedgehog really set it over the top. To see all those colors and everything with the blast processing unit that they had in there, it was revolutionary at its time. So Sega has set the mark, and they had the basketball game Lakers versus Celtics, and I would beat everybody with the Pistons, period. You couldn't beat me. So their problem is they made a great system, and because they made a great system, a lot of people didn't want to buy anything new that they made. They were okay with the Sega Genesis. So when Nintendo came out with the Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, and the Super Nintendo came out, everybody was like, all right, here we go, Super Nintendo time. So when Super Nintendo came out, everybody's like, oh, okay, well now it's a Super one. And it was a very short time they came with the Nintendo 64, but when Super Nintendo came out, that's when Sega started. It's like, okay, we gonna roll out our system. And they had it was the Sega 32X, where you had to put this thing on top of the Sega and put another cartridge in to try to rival the. And then they came out with what was it? Sega Saturn. Yeah, the Sega Saturn. And then after the Sega Saturn system, they ended up it was I think the Saturn that blew out because they were having a lot of troubles with it, and then they didn't have a lot of games for the Sega Saturn. And they were trying to make the Dreamcast came, that was the last one. They were trying to make their games perfect. When Sega came out, they were trying to make their right. That's what it was. Sega CD. The Sega CD with the 32X. That's what it was called. The Sega CD 32X, which was like an adapter piece you could put in to upscale it to 32 if you had a Sega Genesis. You could buy the adapter piece and make it into 32 bits. Then the guys from Sega said there is no way you can make a 64-bit game without on just cartridge. There's no way you can do it. You gotta go to 32 bits was the highest you could go. 64 bits. There's no way you could do that without a disc. There's no way you could do 64 bits on cartridge. When Sega made that statement, they doomed themselves. They was like, Nintendo's lying. There's no way they're coming out with a cartridge-based 64 system. That's what Sega said. Oh, were they wrong. They came out with a disc for the 64-bit, the Sega Saturn, and Nintendo came out with the Nintendo 64 and blew them out the water. And the game that blew them out the water was Yoshi. Super Mario was the launch. It was 64 bits. People love that Super Mario game. But Yoshi came in and swept anything that they had. Because, see, Nintendo was smart. They said, we're not going to focus on trying to reach these teenagers. See, that's what Sega Genesis made their mistakes. They were focused on the teens. Star Fox, yep. Nintendo was focused on the kids. The kids is where the money were. Nintendo had people that was 6, 7 years old want to play Mario. They want to play Mario Kart. They want to play that. Sega didn't have those type of games. Their games was average, advertised more for teens. Well, that's a small market because even the younger people, the older teens wanted to play Yoshi. They wanted to play Mario Kart, Star Fox. And of course, the greatest game ever invented, Zelda, the Ocarina of Time. There was nothing Sega could do. Now, the Sega Saturn system was amazing. It could do a lot. Nintendo stuck with the cartridges. because they could. Their exclusive rights on how they made a 64-bit with cartridge doomed Sega because they thought, because Nintendo actually was going to go to disc. They're like, well, we're moving to disc because that's the only way we could get it done. And then actually this other developer who had a cartridge-based idea for 64 bits and he can get it on a cartridge. Nintendo was like, that's where we need to be. If we could stay cartridge, that's where we want to stay. If we could, that's our, our thing here. We should stay with cartridge because a lot of people wasn't ready to go to disc just yet. Yep. So after this, Sega was trying to survive. Well, no, they did good until it got to where there was new fish in the water. Sony decided they were getting involved in the gaming systems. Right when Sega was like, we're coming back with the Dreamcast. They put all their money into the Sega Dreamcast. And the Sega Dreamcast was a great system. It was just very well done and very complicated. And it suffered from a lot of overheating. Once it started all this overheating things that was happening with it, it effectively became I need to break this all down in a whole video game breakdown. But it led to a whole big mess of things. Because once it started overheating and the games were great, they didn't have enough rights for a lot of games. And it was exclusive rights. And then with Sony coming in the picture with the Sony PlayStation, it limited. Now it's a whole new playing field. You got Nintendo, you got Sony in the picture now, and now it's like, wait a minute, Sony's making video games. This is it. Sega, they said, look, we've lost so much money, and people had just bought the Dreamcast. Like, we like the Dreamcast. I was like, no, it's the way they made the controllers. The way the controllers were, they looked pretty, but the metal that was around the tip of the controller, it was like sticking something in a port. That metal, every time you stuck it in and took it out and unplugged that metal going into the Dreamcast, it could, if the power or if any type of static in there, you could short out the controller. Then the controller won't work. The port is messed up. That happened on so many Dreamcasts. They were losing so much money because those ports would burn out. Sega was just like, we're not going to make any money off this Dreamcast. It's over. So Bill Gates decided he wanted to get into the gaming war to compete with Sony, not Nintendo. He says, no, I don't think we want to go to war with Nintendo. But what we're going to do is go to war with Sony. Like, they wanted to battle Sony. Sony was not happy about Microsoft coming into the gaming business and wanted to get them out of the position. And what happened is most of the guys that was working for Sony was hired by Microsoft. And the Xbox was actually an idea for Sony that they had, and they basically say, you know what, screw this. We're not going to go along with this process. We don't want this idea, and we own the technology, and they didn't. So they fought for the rights for the technology and won. And said, no, Sony, you don't own this. This person doesn't work there anymore. They fired him and tried to keep the technology. So they actually went to Microsoft and got the system done. So now here it is. the Xbox. And they wanted to take out the Sony PlayStation. So Sony was like, bring it. Let's go to war. So Sony pops out with PlayStation 2. One of the best systems they've ever come out with. The PS2. Built-in DVD player. It could stand up. It could lay down. Had some of the best games on them. The PS2 was legendary. Didn't have a lot of the problems the PS1 had. The PS1 had problems loading up. If you got any little scratch, any little bump and it's scratched, you can forget about it. You can get all the alcohol you want. If you bump it, that laser will scratch the disc. That's what was a lot of problems with the PS1. It had a lot of games on it. Only thing that really stood out was Resident Evil, really, at that time. But when PS2 arrived, it came with a slew of games, and the big boys were always Nintendo. Nintendo was winning. Why they were doing this? Because none of them guys could contend with Nintendo. Nintendo still was the top sellers in games. Because they're dedicated more to children. So that there was no way you could beat them. They're the kings of the gaming market. They got it cornered. Period. Then came the PS3. Who remembers the PS3? Oh yeah, Xbox. Microsoft lost a lot of money on the first Xbox, and you never almost ever saw another Xbox system ever. They almost shut down after the first one. The Ring of Death. Whenever that red ring came, you could forget about it. It was over. Yep, Xbox 360 came out, and it was a much better system than the original Xbox. But the thing is, it came out too fast with Xbox. About the time people were buying Xbox 360 was coming out. And they were like, wait a minute, you already making a system already? You just put out Xbox. PS3 was rushed. It was not completed. And because of that, everybody got fired. Everybody. They ruined that launch. Sony lost their shirt with PS3. PS3 came out, and it was so rushed because it had to interface. Back then, Blu-rays cost $500 to own a Blu-ray player. Blu-ray players, the pricing for Blu-rays were $500. And they were giving it away for free on this unit that you was going to sell for about $400 or whatever. So they wanted to make sure it had the Blu-ray feature in there and be able to work the games as well. By them rushing, trying to get this thing to sync up with the Blu-rays and everything else to make sure it plays, they were having a problem syncing that technology in, that they didn't notice the overheating factor that was going to happen with the PS3. And that the metal that they used was made, the aluminum on the inside was very cheap. And it would burn out because the PS3 generated so much power. The cooling fans on there was not working good enough to keep the heat all the way down. And it sounds like a machine, like an engine when you start it. It's like you're powering a whole system when that PS3 come on. And it would work for a while, and the next thing you know, you cut it off, and it just burnt out completely. And you have that the red ring of death. And my buddy, the reason why I know so much about the PS3s because he used to fix them. It's a guy on YouTube that would teach everybody how to fix the PS3, how to get a piece of aluminum, put it in there, and fix that little piece, and then it'll start up again. Then you'll get a green light. And my buddy, man, he had a whole thing of PS3s because people just had them on the shelf. And he was like, man, if you can fix it, man, you can keep one of them. But at least if you can get this one working, man, let me know. The PS3s, man, they burnt out so quick and they lost so much money. It was ridiculous. What's his channel? I forgot, dude. But if you ever want to... all you got to do is type in PS3, how to fix red light PS3. And they'll tell you step by step. I mean, my buddy went and bought the tools that day and started fixing PS3s for a living. And he had a line going around the corner of people coming in there to fix their PS3s. That's how crazy it was. Well, some people, the thing is that if you ran out and got it right away, you were one of the ones that got screwed. If you waited for the second batch of PS3s to come, you had a better PS3. You had one that was completed and done. And there you have it. You had the better system. Mostly 80% of the people who got their PS3s all broke in that initial first launch. They lost about $500 million in revenue off PS3. So, of course, the guy who was in charge was fired. The whole staff, everybody in there got fired. So, for this launch for PS4, it was done entirely different. Now, the PS4 and everything that came with it, it was more prepared. It was properly done. The launch took off, and Microsoft, they dropped the ball with they were not in the same boat as PlayStation. PlayStation just blew them out the water this time. Yeah, that's the problem. They had an overheating problem with the 360, the Microsoft technology. It has so much power. It's just that if you play it consistently, it would freeze. No, the PlayStation doesn't have hardware issues. The PlayStation is more like a gigantic computer which has better syncing with the internet. It actually has a built-in chip. See, what Microsoft had to do, you had to buy extra memory. If you had Microsoft, you had to buy the extra memory. Well, Microsoft is a great system. It's just that the games to me were a lot better on PS4. PS4 was basically a PC. That's all it was, a PC with better games. It was better constructed. PS3 was rushed and it got screwed up, and they took shortcuts, and it cost them a lot of money. They were working on PS4 when PS3 was out. That's why I never bought a PS3. I knew better. I knew already PS4 was coming out. Yeah, when it first came out. Now, that's what's weird about it, is that when Microsoft first came out, what was key to them is their online play. That's what killed it. They were killing the market with that online play. That when Sony PS4 came out, the PS4 had a better online link up than Microsoft. And I'm like, how did Microsoft screw that up? That was their bread and butter. Because that's where the PS3 was really losing at, was the syncing up online. Yeah, my buddy was here. He'll talk to you. Because he still plays PC. He got them all. He's a complete gamer. I'm like, dude, why would you buy the same game on like 3 different systems? You already have this game on PC. Then you went and bought the game on the system. What is wrong with you? And it's these certain memory cards he got. That's called Terra something. I think terabytes or Terra cards or whatever. Some type of memory cards that he gotta have for his PC. He built his own PC. He never goes and he's like, never trust. He's like, never trust Geek Squad. They'll screw your stuff up. You're better off building your own PC, building it at home. Well, it's a certain type of card that gives you a lot of memory. And they're very expensive cards, memory cards. Forgot the name of them. So are y'all going to see this? Well, that's why when you have a great online streaming thing, that's why they're gonna make you pay for their online. But are you ready for the Call of Duty movie? Have any of you figured out which Call of Duty this is yet? Oh, somebody said Infinity Warfare right off the top. Woo! From the top. That is exactly what it is. Infinity Warfare. So, yep. Y'all ready for that movie? The Call of Duty movie is kicking off. Quentin Tarantino's team. So it might not be his actual Quentin Tarantino doing it. His people that produced his movies and directed her. I mean, helped out on their company owned Calls of Duty. So you're gonna see Modern Warfare, Black Ops. You're gonna see the whole saga played out in live action on the screen. They're gonna try it first, like Doom. Doom was supposed to be a series. Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 3. Things went left. The Rock only signed on to do one movie, Doom. That didn't happen. But I'll tell y'all all about it later. This went too long. Which will be first, just regular Call of Duty. The first movie is going to be called Call of Duty. If that is successful, they're coming out with the entire series of Call of Duty. Doom wasn't horrible. It's just not what people thought it was going to be. Doom had a low budget, but the money they spent, they thought it was going to be like the trailer. The trailer showed it just like the game in first person. The scene when he goes in first person and starts going around and shooting. People was like, well, nobody wants to see that for a whole movie. Well, actually, they did. It was a lot of fans that wanted to see the movie just like that. If they want to do the action scenes just like they did that, the fans were more than happy to see that. So they said, oh, man. Yeah, on PC it was. The first Doom on PC, oh, goodness. Well, thanks, Aries. I appreciate that. If you become rich, you can hire me. You got the right price, I'm right there. $4,000 a week, I could swing that. You want to hire me for $4,000 a week? Sign me right up. Where do I sign? Shoot, I used to make that. About last year this time, I was making that. I was making that easy. 5 stacks a week. If I didn't make 5 stacks a week, I was upset. They could never finish the Halo movie. They gave up on the project. Too much red tape. It wasn't the right time for it. They were having trouble making the games for Halo. And when you're dealing with the gaming world, it's a lot different. So once I see Call of Duty actually in post-production, I'll believe it. I believe it. They still saying it, but they're like, no, they're going to do it. So, we'll see. Because they're going to wait around and wait till Call of Duty becomes boring where no one cares about it no more. And that's when they really messed up. But I'm out.